Hello BigTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizzie May Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and in this video I'd like to chat about the middle grade and a few YA books that I read during the month of 2021. So I just published a video where I mainly wanted to talk about all of my series, and because it would just go on for days and days, I decided to hold off and do my middle grade series as a part of this video and just kind of do a wrap up of what my middle grade projects are that I'm currently doing, and how I did during 2021, what I'm going to be doing going forward, and just chat a little bit about the middle grade books and series that I have enjoyed in the year 2021. So I have two different projects that I have been doing that are specific to middle grade. For the last several years, in fact, since my daughter Katie, who in 2021 graduated from high school, since her 6th grade year, I've been reading the Sunshine State Young Reader Award finalists, that can be abbreviated SSYRA, and that is basically the reading list, recommended reading for 6th to 8th grade in the state of Florida. They have a list for 3rd to 5th grade, they've got one for high school, and they've got, I think, some storybooks for younger elementary as well. I think there's 4 different lists. The high school, the YA one is called Florida Teen Reads. And I basically enjoy reading every year the middle grade books. So this year, when the list came out in April, I put out a video and said, I may not read them all this year because the middle school librarian that had been Katie's middle school librarian and I had continued to volunteer with even after she was out of middle school, retired, and we weren't going to be doing book bowl or any of the things that I was used to doing with that list of books. But as it turns out, as I got into the list, I just kept on enjoying them, and I will probably, even though I haven't finished them at this point, I probably will go ahead and try to finish that list. So I have read, in the year 2021, I read 7 of the 15. Already in January 2022, I have read 2 more, and thankfully, a lot of them are on audio, and so I will continue to listen to several more of them on audio, and then pick up the last 2 or 3 that, and there's one that's a graphic novel, so I'm going to read that in print. So I will continue, I think, to just go ahead and finish those. But anyway, I enjoyed those a lot. I won't even talk about them right now because I will do at the end of, when I get the whole list of 15 done, I will do a whole video where I share with you every single one of them. So that will be coming. Then another project that I've been doing for a few years now, even really before BookTube, I think, I've been reading the Newbery winners. Now, at some point, I might decide I want to try to work to read all the Newbery honor books, but really, I've just been focusing on the Newbery winners. I had really wanted to try and finish all of the first 100 in 2021 because the 100th Newbery winner was chosen in January of 2021. So very soon there'll be a 2022 winner, and that'll make 101. But anyway, I didn't get them all done. I just took a count, and I think I have still maybe 20-ish left. I did end up rereading a few this year, not even because I needed to refresh myself for videos. That was part of it, but a couple of them I just reread because I felt like it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Wow, there was me mood reading. What's that about? But I did read for the first time 10 different Newbery winners during the year, and then I reread 7 more. I did read or listen to on audio 1 honor book, and maybe I may have listened to or read a couple of others, but as I was going back through and scanning my Goodreads read shelf, that's the only one that jumped out at me. So, I didn't make my goal of finishing, but I still got several done, and as I finish each decade, then I've been doing a video of where I talk about all the books from that decade. So if you are interested, I do have a playlist of the videos I have done so far, and I'll put a card here, and if I remember, I'll try to put a link in the description, but all you really have to do is just go to my channel and go to playlists, and you will see it. there. And as I do each video, I'll continue to add it to the playlist. Okay, so I have another big project that I've been doing all year called A Series About Series. And I finished 3 middle grade or YA books as a part of my list of 21 that I want to tell you about briefly. And then I also finished one other series that I had started previously. Let me find the right notes here. And that was just by reading one book. Then I had another project to read the last 2 books in 12 different trilogies, and they were all middle grade or YA. I only got 8 of those done, but still that's another 16 books. And then from start to finish, I read 6 different middle grade or YA series. A couple of them are duologies. One of them only has 2 books, and I'm hoping there's going to be more. And then there's 2 other duologies in addition to that. And then the other series are a little bit longer. So let's just chat for a few minutes about the middle grade books and series that I read. I also did read one book in a series that I did not start or finish that is a middle grade series, but it's on my Serious About Series list for 2022. I want to get it finished, and and that's the Charlie Joe Jackson series. I don't have one of them in here, but you know, I'll probably forget to come back and mention that, so I might as well mention that now. Okay, so the 3 series that I finished that were on my SAS list, one of them is the Penderwicks, and this is a delightful series. I had read the first 4 previous to this year, and then these are not in the right order, I read the last one, Penderwicks at Last, with Krista from Books and Jams back in January, February, I think late January. Very good. The ending was a little bit of a letdown, I'll just say, without giving you any spoilers. It was. But I love the series. It has such a classic feel. Really, I think the first book especially just has a Little Women vibe. And I just really enjoyed it. So I mentioned last year at some point that this year I might like to lead a read-along of the series. 5 books, and what I'm thinking of is maybe starting in May and reading one a month for 5 months. And a few people had said they were interested in that. So if you're still interested, please comment below, and we'll just plan on doing that for May. Since there's not really an official middle grade May anymore, you know, that's kind of my main middle grade reading time, because in March I have March Mystery Madness, and so I don't get to read a lot of middle grade for middle grade March. So let's start in May with the Penderwicks, A Summer Tale of 4 Sisters, 2 Rabbits, and a Very Interesting Boy. And if you've read that and haven't read any more, go ahead and reread that, or don't, but then pick up wherever you want to. The Penderwicks on Gardam Street is number 2, so we'll read that in June. The Penderwicks at Point Muette is number 3, and that will be in July. Am I saying that right? May, June, July, yeah. And then in August we'll read Penderwicks in Spring. I mean, I just really couldn't start it any sooner, because in April I've got Amish in April, and so May just works out better. And then in September we'll read Penderwicks at Last. So I hope you'll join in. And then the next series that I finished were the last 3 books in the Chronicles of Perdain, which is a middle grade medieval fantasy series by Lloyd Alexander. It's from the 70s. I put that on my TBR because book 5, The High King, is a Newbery winner. And I didn't want to just start there. I wanted to read the whole series, and I'm so glad I did. That series was so good. The friend group in that series, we could all learn a lesson from how to be a good friend from the friend group in the Chronicles of Perdain. They're just great, and just some fun characters, and it was just a very good series. Kind of slow starting, you know, at first when I started reading it, I thought, oh, am I going to be able to drag myself through this? But no, it is a slow starting series, kind of a slow burn, but I think if you start at the beginning and read the series, you will be glad you did. Then, you know, the big climax at the end is kind of what you expect, but just so good. Really good. Then I read the last book in one of Katie's favorite series. It's the Last Survivor series by Susan Beth Pfeffer. In fact, Katie just reread these for what she thinks will be the last time because she's trying to clear out and make space in her room, and she wants to go ahead and let these go. And so I'm glad I got it. I'm glad I got the last one finished when I did. But the first book is Life as We Knew It, and the premise is that an asteroid has hit the moon and caused it to shift its orbit, which then creates all kind of havoc on Earth, floods and tidal waves and volcanoes and earthquakes and all of that. And life as we know it now is totally different after that. Oh, that's funny. um, so yeah, so there's that. Then the next one, now the first book takes place in more of a rural area, and then the next book is interesting because the same thing happens again, but it's from a different perspective of someone in New York City. And then in the third book, those two main characters meet up, and still got the same dust bunny that won't. I keep dropping it from one book and it lands on the next one. This World We Live In is book 3. And then book 4 is from the perspective of the younger brother of the main character of the first book. And this is the one I read in 2021. I did not love it, let me just tell you. It's a dystopian series, and overall, I think the author really tries to push her own political agenda. That's just the vibe I get. It's pretty tough to read. There's some graphic content. There's swearing. I don't know. It's not my favorite. And I started to say middle grade series, but I think really I would count this as more of a YA series. So anyway, I'm glad that I read it. I do like a good dystopian, but this is not my favorite dystopian series by any means. And there is a lot of personal growth and a lot of grace. These people who are trying to survive do a lot of things that, you wouldn't do in a normal situation. But, where's the one I just read? Holding up the wrong one. Still. No. Oh my goodness. I don't even know. Anyway, I read the last one. So, enough said. Okay, let me put these down. I'll just put them there. Then that was the 3 that were on my have to finish list. Then I ended up listening to the second book in the City Spies series by James Ponti. I don't have any of those with me, but City Spies, the first book, was the Sunshine State book last year, I believe. And then I found out that was the second book, and I listened to it, which caught me up on that series. Now there's going to be a third one coming out in 2022, so I will go ahead and listen to that at some point this year. City Spies is about a group of kids who are, kind of an elite group of spies, and the character dynamic between them, between their leader, who's a man who they called Mother, and their dynamic is really neat, and it's a good friendship story as well. Then my trilogies that I finished, I've talked about them throughout the year, so I'll just kind of briefly mention. One of them was The Luck Uglies by Paul Durham. And again, if you didn't follow me on this project, these are all trilogies, middle grade or YA. I had read the first one previous to 2021, and so I read the last 2 in 2021. So this is the first book. I forget the name of the other 2, but anyway, I did finish that trilogy. And then I don't have any of Alex and Eliza, but the first book, Alex and Eliza, I read for book club a few years ago, and it's by Melissa de la Cruz. The second book, I think, was it called Love and War, or was that the third book? I don't know. I read the second one and then listened to the third one on audio, and I thought it was very well done. It's a YA series. It's historical about Alexander Hamilton and Eliza, his wife, and I thought that Melissa de la Cruz did a great job taking the facts and making the story appropriate for a middle grade or YA audience. To All the Boys I've Loved Before, I went ahead and finished the last 2 of those. Number 2, I did not like. Number 3 did redeem itself some. Number 2 just had a lot of foul language, and I just didn't like it. Especially not for a book that, your kids are reading. The Rats of Nim. Now, I didn't know till a couple years ago that there was even a second and third book. The first book, Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, is one of the earliest Newbery winners I ever remember reading as a kid, and I've been enamored with it ever since. I love it. And I ran into this on a bookshelf at a library book sale a few years ago, and I was like, Nim? But that's not the right author. What is this? And so I looked it up, and it's written by his daughter, Robert C. O'Brien's daughter, Jane Leslie Conley. This is actually book 3. I don't have a copy of book 2, which is Raxo and the Rats of Nim. I'm on the lookout for it, but these didn't disappoint me. I think they have disappointed some people. They don't have quite the same magic that the first book did have, but it does continue on the story, and I enjoyed them. I enjoyed visiting and seeing what the rats were up to after the Frisbee story wrapped up. And this third one, R.T., Margaret, and the Rats of Nim, was good. And, I'm happy that I read them. I was not disappointed. But just know that if you loved the first book, you might not like the other two. You might not. Then I listened to and finished 2 different series by Neal Shusterman. One is a middle grade series called the Accelerati Trilogy. And the first one is Tesla's Attic. I couldn't lay my hand on it, although I do have a copy somewhere. The second book is Edison's Alley. And the third book is Hawking's Hallway. I love this series. It's crazy, weird, unique, a little bit creepy, but so good. And then I finished the Arc of the Scythe. You guys, that series, that trilogy is amazing. You might look at it and go, ugh, why do I want to read about a scythe? It's like a Grim Reaper kind of a thing, but it's fantastic, the whole trilogy. I loved book 2 as much as book 1, and book 3 not quite as much, but still almost. And I'm so glad that I finished that trilogy. Then the last of the trilogies I finished were the graphic novel versions of the Kane Chronicles, which is the Egyptian mythology trilogy by Rick Riordan, and they are adapted for graphic novels by Orpheus Collar. So I finished those, and I talked about that last one in my December wrap-up. Okay, then I read from start to finish 6 other middle grade or YA trilogies. I already mentioned James Ponti, who wrote City Spies. Well, his earlier trilogy, Dead City, this first book was a Sunshine State book back, I think, when Katie was in 6th grade. And at that year, I was just kind of learning about that whole thing, and I did not read all of them, and I didn't read this one. So I always kind of knew I wanted to get back to it, even though it's about zombies, really not my thing, but I thought it was really good. And I went ahead and listened to all 3 of them on audio, and very much enjoyed them. Very strong female lead character, good strong family dynamic, and zombies. Then I reread the first book in a duology, and then went ahead and listened to book 2. I listened to both of these. The first one was a reread of a Newbery winner, Dead End in Norvelt by Jack Gantos. I haven't done this decade yet as far as a video, but I've read most of this decade, and I just couldn't remember much about this. This is from the 20-teens, so it's one of the newer, from this last decade of Newbery winners. And I enjoyed it a lot, even though it was the second time through. It was so fun, and as I was listening, it started coming back to me. And then I had found this somewhere at a book sale, and it's also on Hoopla on audio, so I went ahead and listened to it, From Norvelt to Nowhere. Both of these books are semi-autobiographical, and Jack Gantos has a very interesting history. I read a little bit of his bio, and I want to read some more by him. If he's got anything else. I think he does. Because if you read his bio, you'll see that he spent some time in prison, and I believe he wrote a book about his experiences. So I'm interested to read that. Then I did a author binge project, and so for the month of May, I decided I would binge a couple of middle grade authors. One of them was Gary Paulsen, and I read 4 books. I listened to them on audio. And Sharon Creech, I listened to 4 of her books on audio. One of hers was a reread that I remember just really enjoying. It was called Ruby Holler, and then I listened to 3 more, and I don't have any of them with me, but back when I first got into audiobooks, I sort of went through all the audiobooks in the children's room. Children and teens were all in one room at our public library back when my kids were young, and they'd be, sitting up on the carpet for story time, and I would just peruse the audiobooks and pretty much worked my way through all that were available. So at that point, I read a lot of Sharon Creech books, but she has some newer ones now that I hadn't read, so I wanted to read some of hers that I hadn't read. And I have kind of a collection of Gary Paulsen books on my shelves. I had, previous to this, only read Lawn Boy and the whole Brian saga. So I had a few others, and so I just listened to a couple of random ones from my shelf, and then I had one on my shelf called Sarny, and when I looked it up, I saw that it was the second book in a duology. So I checked out Nightjon, book one. Both of these books are about the slavery time period, and the girl Sarny is a young girl in Nightjon, and Nightjon is a slave who has been bounced around to various plantations because he can read. And the slave owners did not want a slave who could. Sorry if that was a bad transition. I was just talking away about the Gary Paulsen duology called Sarny, and I didn't even realize that the camera had stopped, and I went rambling on and almost finished the video and realized that the camera had stopped. So, just briefly about Sarny. It takes place during slavery times. Well, the first book does, Nightjon. Nightjon is a slave who knows how to read. At least he knows his letters. And so he teaches Sarny how to read letters and how to read. Then he eventually, I think, is shipped off to another plantation, I think. I don't know. Is that a spoiler? I don't know. But actually, I can't remember exactly what happens to him. But anyway, it's her story of learning to read and striking up a friendship with Nightjon. There's a movie based on that book that I thought was very good as well. It's a tough book, though. It really doesn't sugarcoat anything. Then, well, I mean, it is written for a younger audience, so I guess in a way it probably does, but I think it's still a very tough book. Then the book Sarny is Sarny grown into maybe she's in her 80s at this point, and she is reminiscing and telling her life story in the book Sarny. So that was a very compelling duology that I did read, and I'm glad that I did. So then I had another author that I binged quite a bit. I read 3 different series by this author, and I thought I had read every last companion book and everything, but I was just looking today and realized that there was a 3.5 novella that I think I started and I didn't get finished. I had put it back on my want to read and forgot about it, so I'm gonna have to get that done. But anyway, I'm trying to find the right notes here. So the author is Allie Carter. I did a whole video about everything I read by her. Previous to this year, I had only read her Embassy Row trilogy because the first book was the Sunshine State book a few years back. So I read 10 books in the Gallagher Girls series. I read 4 books in the Heist Society. One of those is a novella that is a mashup with the Gallagher Girls. And then there's another novella that's called Grift of the Magi, and I did not finish it. So I just have to start it over and read the whole thing. Then there's two books in the Winterborn Home series. I hope there's going to be more. That's more of a middle grade series, and I really enjoyed that. So anyway, check out my video about Allie Carter and her books. I also read a standalone by her as well. So altogether, I think I read, let's see, is that 16 books by Allie Carter? My notes are all mixed up here, and I've lost part of them. Oh well, I think it was 16 books. Okay, so actually, let me pause it. Let me get my notes. Otherwise, I'm going to forget something. Found my notes. All right, so yes, it was 16 books by Allie Carter. Also, I'll just give a mention. I read 33 books by Dr. Seuss in the month of May. The project Book a Day in May is something that Elizabeth Tyree and I started back when we were doing middle grade May, and so we just decided we would work to try to read a book a day in May every year, and we've continued that. And so I read a Dr. Seuss book every day with my daughter Emily. We ended up squeezing in a couple of extras, and while not middle grade books, still children's books, so I may as well mention them here. And then for the Little House Readathon that I host in February, this was the second year for that. I had a co-host this year, Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf. We did a group read of Young Pioneers by Rose Wilder Lane, and that is a middle grade book. So that's just about all. I didn't actually add up how many middle grade books I read in the year, but I've pretty much talked about most of them. So anyway, I enjoy reading middle grade books. I got started reading Newbery Winners when I was a kid and picked it back up as an adult. And then the Sunshine State books have just been a really fun bonus and a really great way to find out about new middle grade books as they come out. And since I do still sub as a substitute teacher, I like to kind of be up on the books that kids are reading these days and the good books that are out there for my own enjoyment as well. So that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have read any of these or are interested in reading of these, or and I ran all that together. But anyway, if you are interested in reading any of these, or if you would like to join me for the Penderwicks readathon read-along starting in May, please comment down below and let's chat. So I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.